Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Closing the First Deal. Today, we have the honor of having Matthew. Matthew actually has a background in healthcare informatics, which is pretty cool. I've never heard of it, but we'll maybe get into it, maybe not. It's okay. So Matthew, tell us, what inspired your real estate journey?
Um, so fair warning, I'm gonna just put that out here because it's gonna get to this place in this pod a little bit. But so my real estate journey was kind of in an emotional thing, I want to say. I think for me it was about kind of like a coming of age story and me like just proving myself as a man. In my journey at least. It started as um me kind of just seeing my family and my father and just him have a house with, a wife and kids, and I just aspired to do the same. And then it became a little bit of a challenge. Like I tried to buy my first home in 2015, a couple years after getting into the professional space, and I was met with some challenges, so that did not happen. So eventually, like just kind of just keeping that vision and seeing it through and making sure that no matter what got in my way, I just got there at some point. That became something that was just a goal of mine and something that I didn't really want to stop at not accomplishing that at some point. So just watching my dad being a black male that as you know, generational wealth isn't, something that we all come from or have that opportunity of our parents being able to help us through these journeys. I say that also because if you ask people about me and my family, you would think that uh, my dad played a big part in my real estate journey, like financially, and just I think the generational wealth speaks to that. Like my dad's he's a optometrist, he's a doctor, he has his own business for I don't know how many years since I was born. He's accomplished a lot, but that generational wealth aspect is not something he was able to like my kids might have it now, but he couldn't pass that to me because he had to start on his own and kind of build those blocks on his own. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
It did, it did. So I guess going back to your first attempt, you said that you had some trials. So what happened in 2015? Like why weren't you able to get the house?
um a couple of things. I think just young age. My wife, well, my now wife, at the time she was my fiance. We had moved into our first place together. It was a co-op that my father owned. We ended up having to leave there at some point, a little sooner than expected. And so we were like, you know what, before we try to get another apartment, let's just see if we can buy a house. We're kids. We were probably in our early 20s, not early 20s, like mid 20s. And I felt like we both had decent incomes. We did not. Maybe at the time. Maybe at the time. But we were also had full transparency. We had a couple of credit cards at the time. We had some stuff going on, and it's just like, if you wake up and try to buy a house, you're hit with this reality of um you know this deep insight into your financial background. And that was kind of my wake up call to be like, you know what, it was a flat out rejection to just tell you we didn't have the credit score we needed to buy a home. We didn't have the income we needed to buy a home. So it helped give me more insight into what we would need to reach that. And then we kind of built our well, I built my work situations and my kind of goals, wants, and needs around that. Just knowing that like at some point I have to get here. So whatever they're telling me I don't have, I'm gonna take that personally and I'm gonna find a way to make it happen. So.
So what was that journey? What was the change? How did you pivot and then go from there?
All right, so 2015. So a couple of things, that I didn't necessarily want to have to do. We were in Long Island at the time. I had to leave the spot I was in. We moved to an apartment in it was technically Hempstead, but I always call it Garden City because it was on the border. And it was a really nice building. So I just like to make my town, sound a little better than it was. So I was like, I live in Garden City. Um, we moved to this really nice apartment. I think rent was like 2,500. This was like I want to say 2017ish. I think rent was like 2,500. We stayed there for a year. We ended up having my first child shortly after that lease was up. So we had moved back into we moved to my parents-in-law's home for a little bit to have my first child. Um, and then going through that experience, I kind of was like, I don't really want to be living under somebody's roof. You know, I don't know for how long while I have a child. It's just call it ego, whatever you want. Like I was just like, man, I just gotta be out of here. I need to be making my own way for me and my family. So we moved into an apartment in Queens and we signed a 2-year lease. And I told myself that I'm not leaving this apartment unless we're under contract in a house. Like we're not moving anywhere else. I'm not doing anything else. It was smaller, it was more uncomfortable than the spot we were in Hempstead. But I was like, again, I put that pressure on myself. Like, look, we're not moving until we're under contract with something. So I think I'm actually forgetting your question. What was your original question? Yeah.
So you were elaborating on what the exact change was during
Okay.
your
Okay.
journey.
So yeah. So the change was number one, my child. I had Chase at that point, and I had made a promise to myself. So I think it was him. I think it was fathership. I think it was fatherhood. I think it was just the overwhelming feeling of what it's gonna be to be a father, and the expectations that I had for myself and where my life was at that time. I just had to take a harsh reality. So the change was literally the stuff you read in self-help books. I think I read like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Um, I said the next day I'm waking up and going to the gym at 5 a.m. I put on like 25 pounds at that time. I was 25 pounds heavier before COVID. Um, every day I was in the gym. I was reading. I was watching what I ate. I'd pushed everything to the side. I wasn't talking to my friends like that. I was just like, look, in these next 2 years, something's gonna happen. I picked up an extra contract with another hospital. Like I was like, by any means necessary, we're gonna make something happen. So
So
here's yep, go ahead.
go ahead, continue.
The funny part is that's not even what I think got us there. So I think COVID was the blessing in disguise, to be honest. Because what happened was me and my wife liked lifestyle too. We liked going out to eat. We like traveling a lot. We like that type of stuff, right? So when COVID happened, self-explanatory, we couldn't do any of that. We ended up saving our down payment in like somewhere between 3 to 6 months once like COVID was happening. And I was just like, where did this money come from? You know, like it caused me to get like a little bit obsessive with our finances, just realizing that, wait a minute, like these $250 dinners every such and such, and you know me, yeah, like the clothes I was wearing at the time, the things I was like, it just made no sense in terms of me wanting to move in the direction of owning a home. So even with like a good income per se and all that stuff, like your spending is very important for multiple reasons, right? So when I had a minute to like sit back and watch like some cash pile up based off of just not going anywhere, I'm like, oh, this is easy. I just gotta stay home. And you mean to tell me like I could just have a lot of cash based off like this is really simple, but it's it's not something everybody thinks about. Like it's so hard to sit down and be real with yourself about what you are doing wrong and what you could do better. And I think I've made that my thing moving forward in a lot of avenues. Like it's just like, man, just be real with yourself. You being real with yourself, you could accomplish some stuff. So that was it for me. Yeah.
That was
So
dope.
I was before I cut you off, I was going to ask you to elaborate on the changes that you made financially.
Gotcha.
Because
Yeah.
when you say Matthew is, not was, is, because it's just a matter of, it's like riding a bike. Epitome of fly. Like when you talk about lifestyle, you talk about culture, like what's in, where do you want to go eat? Where do you want to go hang out at? And we're not even going to talk about outfits because you're just going to see what he's wearing. And then not even just him, it's his whole crew as well. It's crazy. So when you said you stopped hanging out with friends, you said you just stopped spending. I wanted you to dive into that exactly. but you already did. If you want to delve into it a bit more to where you can see the difference in buying the sneakers, the jeans, and how you can see the cost of maybe one outfit and how not buying an outfit to go out during COVID was probably equivalent to a mortgage payment, right?
Yeah,
That
just
the
about.
person that
Right.
looking at and saying, you know what, 6 months ago, prior to COVID, he was spending this frivolously. But now they're not saying, oh, because of COVID, you're saying this. Oh, I'm able to stack this. Look at the difference here. So was there something that you just continued doing, or did you close during COVID?
So we always had the plan in motion, right? So like since we signed that lease, I was like, look, we're not leaving here till that happened. We were gonna sign an extension at one point. I think I can't get the timeline right, to be honest with you, but we were gonna sign an extension because I think the contract was taking longer than we expected. So as I stopped spending the money around that time, I realized that it was just a shocker to me, man. Monday would come again after a weekend where we stayed home again. Maybe by like the third or fourth week, I'm like, my bank account started to look crazy. And what is it? Like, what is going on right now? So like, as I just put two and two together, I'm just like, all right, this is an easy fix. And the fashion thing, to be honest, like or the spending habits and all that, I think I still to this day have it to a certain extent. I just think I've learned to become more disciplined, and I've also learned to put other things first. So like that's gonna come from me at this, especially like my two little ones. That's gonna come from me, maybe ninth or 10th on my list of stuff that I plan to do with my money these days. But I do think you gotta live a little. You gotta love your life and live a little. I do think that's important, but I think that discipline for me has become more important. I think confidence, being happy with myself, being happy with the decisions that I'm making as I become a man, more of a man, over time. Um, I don't know. It just feels right inherently. Like I don't know if it's maturity. I don't know what it is, but it's just like one of those things. Like, yeah, a fit is a fit, and a fit will always get me. Trust me. Look at my Explorer. I'm into worse things now, Gav. I like watches. It's terrible. We'll get into that later. It's bad, but you just learn. You learn trial and error. Like time is money. Like this is energy you're putting in to go to work every day, or be a landlord or run your business or whatever you do. It's your time, and your time is not something you're getting back. So it's like, just make the right decisions with your time. I think you'll be happy with yourself overall. Yeah.
So speaking of that first deal, would you care to elaborate on what your experience was like? Did you mention that it had to be extended? If so, what was the cause? How did you overcome that hurdle?
All right. So my first deal, there are pros and cons to my first deal. The pros are we got the COVID interest rates, right? So that'll always be near and dear to my heart. That's something that to this day I'm just grateful for. I'm happy for it. Um, Possible that we would have had a barrier into the entry of home ownership if it weren't for those rates. Um, the next thing, so another pro I would say is I think we bought in a decent, like up and coming neighborhood. I know everything is appreciating right now, but I think we made a solid choice. Like I'm pretty happy with the choice we made thus far. It had to be extended because the previous owners, I think they were like on vacation or something. They just weren't ready to get home by the closing date. So I think they extended it like another 30 days. But some of the cons of that first deal were it was during COVID. And what that meant was this is when the interest rates were super low and um, the supply and demand for homes, which to this day I'm assuming still hasn't caught up. It was nuts. So like we put in a probably like 11 offers on different homes throughout our journey. I think we spent like between 5 and 6 months looking until we got an offer accepted. We actually got two offers accepted on the same day. One was this home now. The other one was um, in central New Jersey, so like Edison or something like that. Much bigger house, beautiful home. Edit it if you want to. I'm gonna get political for a second. There was like this stretched out like Trump sign on the neighbor's house, and it just wasn't in the same type of neighborhood. The taxes were higher. I've read some articles about like there being racism in the area, and I was just like, you know what? And it was a lot further too. So like I'm 8 minutes over to GWB now. Before I would have been like another 45 to an hour. Like you're not gonna see family like that. Most of my family's in New York. You're not gonna see friends like that. I can't shoot to the city like that. So it was also convenience too. Um, so I'm in a Jewish neighborhood now. I have two little ones, so like the school district's pretty cool too. They could just go to school and they're good. Those were all factors. So I ended up getting a smaller home than I wanted to get. But so I took the offer of the smaller home, but I just knew there were so many pros in terms of like one, value, two, location, three, school district, four, safety. Like I live in one of the safest towns in the United States, like over and over again has been proven. So like um those things, I don't really feel like those are things you could or you want to sacrifice when you're raising a family in a home, even if the house is bigger per se. I just think like safety and community and all that stuff is kind of important. So yeah, those are my pros and cons, but I think there were more pros. Oh, I left out one more con too. And I struggle with this to this day, and I'd like to get your advice on this, Gab. Um, I was very conservative. I won't say very, because I ended up getting promoted after I bought the house, but I was pretty conservative with my purchasing power and what I decided to spend. And the reason for that was some of what we talked about before, just opening cash flow, just making sure that like I could still live the same life I want to live while I have a house. And the second part was just, just uncertainty. You never know when something crazy happens. So it's like, why have that much over your head? If you could choose to go the safer route initially, knowing that in the future, one, I can even either leverage this to buy something else later on or sell this or whatever the case may be. I just wanted to start a little bit small in terms of both square footage and pricing, just because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what this life looked like, so I didn't want to, take too big of a risk initially. But I'm not looking at the same interest rates anymore. So it's like, which one should I have done? I don't know.
I think you made the right decision for you and your family. And I think in the next 10 to 15 years, it's going to be a no-brainer. You never want to be house rich and cash poor. And like you said, quality of life, being closer to your family. Your parents are in Long Island, right? So imagine, like you said, there's nothing like having parents, family, friends within 30 minutes to an hour. 2 hours gets a little challenging. Your whole life changes. It's
Yeah.
only you and your kids in the house, you and your family in the house, gonna drive each other crazy. Um, I also think it was great for you to make that decision because you're getting your feet wet and you didn't really have the experience. That house, because it's 8 minutes from the bridge, is going to shoot up in equity as well. So you bought in an area that appreciates along with New York City, whereas in a lot of other areas in New Jersey, they're influenced by the towns in New Jersey. So you have that going for yourself as well. With regards to interest rates, I wouldn't touch anything to do with your personal house whatsoever. Never,
Yeah.
ever, ever. In terms of positioning yourself for your next move, save, stack up, sacrifice, be strategic. You don't always have to go with the 20% down. You can also crowd fund with your friends, put down on something cash, then start with the refinancing. I'm a big proponent of that. Not putting down a 20% loan to get into a deal just so you can say you're invested. No, take your time, do it the right way so that when you cash out, refinance, you're walking away with the asset, you're pulling all of your money out, you're able to do it again, and there's no risk involved because now it's infinite return considering the fact that all of your money is out of the deal. You don't want to touch that interest rate because your house is making you money right now. Even though you might not have a tenant, your house is making you money because it's performing better than the inflation rate. So you have the appreciation, then you have your interest rate, with making sure that your house is always going to hold its value. So don't regret that. You're still very young, even though you've been wanting to make moves for a long time. It's just a matter of preparing yourself. That's
Right.
all. So just do that. You didn't make a wrong move yet. Just continue working. You have solid people in your corner. And I'm always a matter of a phone call or text message away.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, brother.
So that was actually one of our upcoming questions. How do you plan on moving into the next deal if you want another house? And what role will your first house play in that next purchase?
So that's something we're actively thinking about now. As of now, right now at this current state, we have a 5-year plan that we've begun kind of working on. I'm really like just to segue for a second, just another transition about me. So I don't know if we realize sometimes how much emotion plays a factor in the way we view finance, the way we view ourselves, and all that fun stuff. So, as I become a father, I'm a big proponent of therapy. I think I think every and anybody should go, even if you feel like you shouldn't. It's been a journey I've been on since my son was born, and I think it's taught me like tremendous things about myself. I left that out with the other questions too. That was also part of what like helped me in addition, like start to navigate some of this stuff. So um I'm in this bag now where it's like, man, for me and my wife going on vacation, before we do anything that's like over, I think anything over 2 grand, like we're sitting down with a spreadsheet, we're talking to each other, we're like, this is where we're at this month, this is where we're at next month, this is what we plan to do in 5 years. Is there room for it? Yes. All right, let's do it. Is there room for it? No. All right, we'll sit out this month or whatever. We'll make some adjustments. Or maybe we gotta cut out this, cut out that. But now I'm like goal focused, where that was never really the way I moved. I kind of just moved haphazardly. God was always on my side in terms of like places of employment, finance, all that stuff. Like it just always seemed like luck. But the reality is now I'm realizing how powerful the luck is if I put in to practice the things I've learned and the things that I want to do. Like become intentional about it, like put purpose behind it, and let that kind of steer the way. So we're pulling out spreadsheets now. We have a 5-year plan to buy either our next home or an investment property, right? So the reason it's 5 years is a couple of things. So it's not just a 5-year plan based off of what's going on in the market. It's a 5-year plan based off of our household, what we currently have going on, what we want to go on in the future, and where we would like to be in 5 years. So it's a lot of shifting, it's a lot of navigating right now, but I tend to pull out my phone very often and go to my wife and just be like, look at our equity, look at where this will be in a couple of years, look at our savings, look at where this is going to be on track to be in a couple of years. Like I'm starting to get obsessed with just like looking at these numbers on paper, and I think that's where the strength is. Like I think when you can see things, it's really important. Like when you can see things, you can see things. Like you could see the big picture when you're beginning to track what's going on. So for me, we've been on that wave. I'm kind of excited about it because it's the first time I'm doing it. I've spoke to some people about it and they're like, that's really good. Like most people don't do that. And I'm like, I know, because I didn't forever. You know what I mean? Like I never did. But that simple step, like you're beginning to learn habits that are going to begin to put you in a much better position. And that's kind of what I'm doing now. So like we're hoping in 5 years at some point, whether it's a little bit before or a little bit after, that the interest rates relax again a little more. I don't know. I haven't been an adult long enough to really see this cycle play out a couple times, but I don't know. I'm just positioning myself where if that doesn't come, I'm just going to be ready to jump when I'm comfortable and ready to jump. You know what I mean?
Do you have an FHA loan?
Yeah, I do now.
Okay, so there's something called the
Whoa.
You got cut off, Gavin, so we don't know if you're speaking.
Yeah, I think losing you. He was about to get into some fire too. My ears were on. I was like, what?
My apologies.
Oh, there you go.
What's up with my connection? But
Nice.
FHA Streamline, you can look into some refinancing options to where the interest rate won't jump up too much.
Okay.
I think it's great that you guys have a 5-year goal, a 5-year plan. A lot of times what happens is you end up superseding that and be in a much better position than you would think. One strategy that I would suggest is if you're not already max out on your individual retirements. 20 plus 20 is 40. At the end of 5 years, that's 200,000. That's more than enough to put down 20% on a multifamily house.
And still not touching. So that's the other so the thing I want to point out about what you're saying too, that's our plan too. I'm like, listen, I don't want to touch the equity in this home if we don't have to. Like we don't
Oh,
like
you should never. You should never. Don't do it. Stack
yeah,
up. Stack up. Because the truth is, if we're not in the position where we want to be, then we're not ready to be there. So save up, learn during that time, learn as much as possible because you're gonna end up risking your own money. And that house is your first major accomplishment with your wife. That's your kid's name all over it. You don't
right.
risk that money. You don't play Monopoly with that money. You
I
play
agree.
with the other. Play with the money that the government is already playing Monopoly with or playing a game with, right? The stock market is going up and down. You don't have any control, but on a purchase, you will.
Right. Yeah. So
So
that's another thing too. So for the beautiful thing about COVID, like I didn't end up touching my retirement or anything like that. I think later down the line I did like to do some renos in the house, some renovations,
we're
but like
talking
to buy,
about
huh?
we're talking about you working for at least 8 years now. You're probably
Yeah.
in a much better
Yeah,
position
yeah, yeah,
than
for
you
sure.
think. And I
Yeah.
wanted to touch on something. You mentioned therapy, and I think it's great that you went to therapy. Actually, I started my journey with therapy prior to becoming a dad as well. That's exactly when I started my own. And a lot of Black men, they don't communicate this. We don't talk about this, right? Like
Yeah.
we'll text each other throughout the years, but we've never spoken about seeking therapy. I think it's good. I think it's great to be provided with guidance. And I think the same is true when it comes to finances as well, right?
Facts.
There's
Yep.
nothing wrong with your wife and you sitting down with someone to say, hey, this is our 5-year plan. Does this look good? Or where should we sway? Where should we pivot? Where would we have to call an audible because this may be unrealistic? And I'm going to tell you, you're probably in a much better position than you think you are in right now. So you probably don't even need a 5-year plan.
Yeah, I mean, I just I I worry about, over leveraging and all that stuff. So I try to be a little bit conservative. I don't even know where that came from because again, that wasn't
Yeah,
me when I was younger, but
because you're a dad now. You're
yeah, yeah,
responsible. You're a husband. You're a leader of a family.
yeah.
So you're not only thinking about yourself. But I'll tell you what, if the stock market crash, all those pensions and retirement accounts
That's
are
all
coming
going
down.
back.
One
Yeah,
thing about property, even during a recession, even any economic downfall, maybe rents will go down, maybe not. Property values aren't dropping. They're not going to drop. They're not going to say, oh, the economy's doing poorly, so your $500,000 house is now worth 200,000. No, they say your loan isn't worth it. You're underwater, so you don't want to under leverage. And as long as you're doing 25 to 30%, you're going to be good. You're going to be good. And it's all about making money on the close. So you want to get yourself into a position where you know you're going to be making money and you're not losing sleep at night. And that's why it's so important to do as much research as possible.
yeah. So it's funny. This area I live in now, my next door neighbor just sold his home. Well, my former neighbor, he just sold. I think he closed at the end of July. I, I'm a little nosy, so I'm always on Redfin. Like, what did you pay for this, man? And like, what is it going for? And I think I think he paid like 280 something for his house. 280, like almost 290, you could say. And I think he ended up selling like the years. I don't want to give you the years. I might be lying, but I want to say he bought it in 2017, but he ended up selling for like mid sixes, I think. And his house is smaller than mine. Like he doesn't have like it's a one level, it's a ranch. Like he doesn't have a basement or anything. And I was just like, man, that's crazy. Like I don't know what the fees look like. I don't know what kind of like taxes get taken out of the closing and all that stuff. I don't know how much he's gonna actually take home of that. But was like, that, this isn't too bad. I could live with this if that ends up happening for us at some point or whatever the case is. But that type of growth over that amount of years while you're still working and you're still doing whatever you're doing to make money, it's not a bad check to have when you got, a place to live, shelter and all that. It's not a bad situation. And the buying process wasn't as intimidating as I had expected it to be initially also. Um, it was fairly simple. It was just more so of a waiting game. It's just, it's like it's kind of a legal process and all that stuff. You just gotta wait till everything comes together. But it actually wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all.
So when you speak about your next purchase, what are your actual goals? Maybe if we plan backwards. Oh, first of all, before this slips my mind, you mentioned traveling.
Mhm.
Holly doesn't say this much, but she's like a travel guru. I don't
Yeah,
even know if I can count how many countries this lady's been to. So if offline you want to touch base with her about traveling while saving,
yeah,
that might
absolutely.
be worth the time.
Love
Um,
to.
if you plan backwards, if you decide what your not your 5-year goal, because that was based on finances, but if you
Mhm.
plan backwards, what do you and your wife want your end goal to be in terms of the portfolio? Then your next deal will determine what steps you need to take. So, what is your goal?
Um, so like lifelong, you talking about like when I'm retired, we're talking like 65, 70 right now. Well, I hope to be retired before then, but we're talking like 60s right now.
Just no, not that
Or
far down the line. We have another
um,
question that's very
all right.
similar to that. But what do you want for you in the next few years?
Um, I'd like to stop playing with my potential a little bit. I think that um, as we discuss some of this stuff, I think that, I've been fortunate enough through the blessings of God to really, as a black male, be able to, do some damage or some great things financially if I really want it. I'm really focused and really disciplined enough. So I think for what I want for myself is I want to see what I'm capable of. I want to see what I'm able to accomplish in turn with balance. Like I'm not saying I don't want to be a billionaire. I don't want that actually. I think that's too much headache. I don't want that, whatever. But I absolutely want to be a millionaire. And I think that's very attainable. I think it's, within reach. I think it's right in front of me, if I play my cards right. And I think I just want to prove that to myself. I don't want to prove that to anybody else either. Like the way I'm kind of moving now, I'm starting to learn to become so quiet with my moves now that like it's not for anybody else. It's for me. Like it's something I want to prove to myself, to be truthful. So my goal is to also to be an example to my son, to show him what could be if you just focus and you're true to yourself and you try to make the right moves. Um, I guess it's a little bit about others around me. I kind of just want to be an example. I've taken being a black male in America very personal over the past couple of years, and I grew up with, I went to all white schools my whole life. I grew up around people that didn't really look like me most of the time, except for my family and my friends in my town and neighborhood. Um, but I just really want to take this as personal as I can and just, you know, I look at redlining maps of this area I live in today, and I'm just like, man, like there's a time where they say you don't belong here, don't come here, and it's just like to me, in light of everything we're seeing today, which actually breaks my heart a little bit, not because I don't condone abuse or anything going towards women, but I gotta touch on this Diddy situation for 1 second, and the reason is with everything going around, the thing that pains me the most is that we have to see this happen to one of our own. Like, he was dead wrong for some of the stuff he was doing, absolutely great. But like somebody who makes it to billionaire status that looks like us, I don't want to see you go out like this, bro. Like, it's crazy. So like these are the things that like I'm just trying to push forward. I'm realizing that like we don't have this stuff too much in our culture, man. Like we don't home ownership. If we're talking about black males, my contacts of the people I know, I'm not saying they don't exist, has dropped significantly of my friends I could call and be like, yo, bro, the water heater just went out, this going on, and like we're just having conversations about the stuff I gotta, maintain, go through. It's kind of heavy, but it's a journey and there's a purpose behind it. And for me, it's about like just showing people who look like me, like, yo, yes, it's work. Yes, I gotta stick to my routine. I gotta work out. I gotta go to therapy. I gotta eat right. I gotta do a lot of stuff to keep my head on my shoulders. But
Yeah.
it's so beautiful to look the way I do and to walk out my house and see people look at me like, what is he doing here? Is he renting or is that his? Yeah, it's mine because I work hard. I believe in myself and I do everything I can to take the right steps. And the man above is on my side too. I just think it's about showing others that like, yo, this is possible. I still have some real moments. And it sounds crazy because it's just like, yo, it's just owning a house. Who cares? Anybody can do that, right? But the reality is, me and my wife did this on our own. We know the blood, sweat, and tears that came into this process, and we know where we like to push ourselves later. So to answer your question, I don't really have an end goal. I think over time, I'm hoping to inherit a couple of properties from my father as time goes on and all that fun stuff. And then from there, it probably isn't even about the money anymore. Like this is about purpose and just showing people that like you could do this, man. You could just buckle down, read a book, have a conversation with yourself, and do everything in your power to get what you want to accomplish. So that's my purpose. I really don't have like this put together answer to be honest with you, but it's like it's just dope watching you challenge yourself and watching you show up and meet those goals kind of. That's what it is for me.
That's deep. That's beautiful. And you're absolutely right. Like, I feel like life is just a bunch of challenges that we give ourselves to see like what type of legacy we're going to leave behind or what type of person we're going to be at the end. Because the reality is everything stays. Like the only thing that continues once we pass away is the memories that we left, the people that we touched, the people that we have impacted. That's what lives past um, our life here on earth. But everything you said was just so beautiful to live with intentionality, and continue to move. Um, and yeah, I feel like you are an example of what a Black man should be. So that's awesome. Keep doing your thing. And with so I guess with leaving a legacy to your child, you mentioned how he's like the inspiration behind becoming a real estate investor. So are you currently having conversation with him about financial literacy or playing any games to help him like learn? Are you doing any of those things?
So it's been heavy on my mind, right? So like we're starting to like learn things. We'll watch some YouTube videos about like certain economic like just themes. So like regular stuff, supply and demand, this and that. Like I'm trying to it's actually you're reminding me a little bit because his birthday just passed in the beginning of August and so he has like a shoebox full of cash now. And I'm like, this is probably a bad way of teaching you to, manage this or keep this. Like you just keep it in a shoebox and it's just been sitting there for over a month. But he also does models, so he has like a trust in which he's been like kind of having some cash going to also. I think it for me, I think the journey is gonna be similar as yeah, a lot more similar as like buying a house where like again I felt like I had to teach myself that process. And I think as a parent, I'm probably gonna teach myself how I'm gonna teach my kid about finances. But we're definitely at that age and stage where it's been more and more on my mind, and I'm just like, this is coming. We went on Amazon to spend a gift card for his birthday, and he bought some stuff that I'm like, do you sure you want to spend your gift card on this? And he's like, yeah, I do. And it's tough because you have to let him be a kid, but at the same time, there are certain lessons I want to instill. And even on top of that, I do feel like people have to go through their own journeys as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what sticks and what works, what doesn't. Because my dad told me years ago, like, don't spend on clothes, don't waste your money, save your money. And that was like the extent of it. I mean, that's going to take you so far as a little kid. who has money. You're just gonna spend your money. But yeah, so I don't know. I think I have to research some ways of how to teach that and how I kind of want to get things across to him. But I think the best way, here's a good way my dad taught me. An example. Like he just, he showed me, like I saw certain things. Um I want that to be the lesson, a teacher in a sense, but I also want it to make sense to him. Like I don't want him to think anything comes natural or anything is you're not entitled to anything. There's work that comes with this and responsibility and discipline. And if you lack in any of those areas, it could be gone tomorrow. Like you have to respect the laws. So yeah, I don't to answer your question, there's something on my mind. I haven't like thought about how I'm gonna do it yet. Yeah.
So that's one half of the question,
Mhm.
or at least the answer or response I feel you can give. And there's also so much more to it as well, right? Because you're the continuation of a story. There were chapters that came before you. So you're
Mhm.
standing on the shoulders of a giant. I know who your dad is,
Yeah.
and I know how pivotal his role was in your life. I know how influential he was, just not even sitting down speaking to, just seeing what he was able to accomplish and being a man for his family, right? So speak more about the generational wealth, because you alluded to it. Oh, I went to schools where people didn't look like me. Okay, I wonder how you got there. Oh, we stayed at my dad's co-op. Oh, okay. Oh, so this property, right? So
Yeah.
speak to some of the generational wealth that you came into. Are there
Yeah.
discussions that your dad has with you that you want to relate to your son? And what do you feel like you have more to learn from your dad?
That's another interesting thing right now. So like, um, coming up in my 20s or whatever, I think it was again, I think it was an ego thing for me, even like buying this home, because it was a coming of age for me. Like I'm gonna do this by myself, and I don't need help from anybody. So like, I didn't speak to my dad much about this deal. I think I showed it to him when we were under contract, but I didn't speak to him prior about this deal. Just for that reason, just because I was like, man, in this climate, I know you're a doctor and all that fun stuff, but I'm about to show you that like I didn't have to be a doctor and I could still, do my thing out here. So like it was that like silly ego stuff. But now I definitely some breaks in this house and I can't figure it out off of YouTube. He's getting the next call. So like he got he got his role for sure. Um, but yeah, I just I've watched him just over the years just take so many risks and kind of just put himself in so many situations where it also wasn't always very glamorous. Like there were, things that clearly go wrong. There were calls at like 2 in the morning where he had to jump out of bed and go figure out something was leaking at such and such's apartment or whatever the case was. So it helped me learn some things in terms of like where I want to go in terms of real estate. I don't even know if being a certain type of, I won't even say being a landlord. I'm fine with being a landlord. I don't think management is going to be my lane at all. I think management company all the way for several reasons. I just don't like being bothered with certain stuff at certain times. So I've learned things from him. I basically just got a second seat at kind of investing in property sometimes as if it was my. I mean, you know, hopefully it is mine someday. And when that time comes, I'll be really excited to kind of just, go through the process with my son as much as possible and see if he's interested in it. He's always instilled, I was always distant from it because I was a kid and I liked play and I watched my dad work a lot. I watched my dad work a lot to the point where I think I'm starting to work a lot now myself. And I think I'm looking at myself like, what are you doing to your son now, sir? Like you're working a whole lot now. But I realized at this age and this stage, like what it was all for. And, for my mom to like, my mom didn't work till I was in high school. She became a RN eventually, but she had, she was taking care of for a long time. So that always, I had an aspiration of like, all right, I got to take care of everybody in this house. My wife does work, but she's, um, if she ever wanted to not work, I don't think she would. She just loves to work. So it wouldn't matter whether, she could or couldn't, she just would because she likes to work. She also has her own business, so she's trying to build something also for the kids over there. I think I was put in a situation where I could buy my first home on my own, and I think it was, I didn't have any undergrad debt. I caught a couple loans in grad school because, you know, why not? Everybody else had a student loan. I'm like, all right, let me see what the fun's about. But I had no undergrad debt. I could say my dad did that for me too. He paid for school straight out of his pocket. He put me in a certain position. He put me around certain people that made me feel like the bar that I need to reach has to be, the bar that some of these people who do not look like me are reaching. And that came with, that comes with its own stressors, but I think that it allowed me to just see a certain vision and see a certain level of like life and lifestyle, and like how maybe I could implement some of the stuff into raising my kids to hopefully get them to that same place too. But yeah, I mean, I could speak for days about, sacrifices my parents have made. It's just I hope I'm able to, continue to hold that torch and kind of do the same for my kids. So that's where I'm at right now, trying to navigate, not surpassing my father anymore, because I think that I've tried that for a couple years and that's exhausted me, actually, to be honest with you. It's
That's
crazy.
a losing battle to fight,
It's exhausting. Yeah.
because you mentioned earlier redlining,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Right. So think about the time where he came up during his accomplishments,
Right.
and then also where he's from. Right? Was he born in America?
Nope. It's born in Haiti. Yeah.
Came over here, reached the top level of education, and was able to make a way for himself where there were way more barriers that were placed in his pathway. So don't compete. Just try to soak up game and learn as much as you can from him. It's a blessing to have a dad around.
Yeah. I'm trying to tap into that bag as well. Like, as I get older, as he gets older, I'm kind of like, man, this guy ain't doing nothing right now. I need to just call him and just start picking his brain, man. Just start talking to him a little bit more, because as heavy as this all is, um, there's several more that came before us that have done it and are doing it. So it's just like, it's best to, try to learn from those people if possible. Yeah. Was that wasn't the last question, was it? No.
So
Okay.
that was
No,
not
I'm
the
not. I was just making sure I didn't, because I know there's a question about like legacy. I was making sure I didn't answer everything.
yeah. So I guess going into the next question, what does generational wealth mean to you, and what role has it played in your life, and what role will it play in your future?
Generational wealth.
So I think you answered the first two. So I think the last part is, what role will it play in your future?
Um, that's I'm waiting to see what that does in a perfect world. In a perfect world, it allows me more freedom to be a lot more present for my children, my family, and for myself. Um, in a perfect world, it changes the trajectory of my children and their children and etc. Like it just changes our bloodline forever. Um, Again, like just to tap into some of the uh, emotional aspects that I can connect with, because when we're discussing real estate and real estate investments and all that, like I hear finance and I hear dollar signs. And I know that's not the only aspect of it, but what that means to me in this present day, now that I am a father and I have two little kids to raise who aren't um Caucasian in America, it's so much deeper than I could even tell you. Like it's it's really deep. When I think about like what finance means to us as a people and the opportunity it opens up, the stress it alleviates, the 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 fact that like you could wake up and actually live your life the way you want to live your life to a certain extent, like they're all privileges. And we've gotten the short end of that stick for some time. Even a child, a man who's coming from, you know, a doctor as a father, like, yes, he all those things Gavin said he's done, but he's not the richest man in America based off that. So there's two sides to it. You could do all the work in the world and there's still limitations. There's still a lot of barriers you got to jump through, to really make it to, a certain status in this country. And I think that every step we take closer to that as a family is just it's just a blessing, man. Like you have to humbly just look at what God has allowed for you sometimes and what you were able to accomplish on every level, whether it's my father's, whether it's me, whether it's my son, or whatever the case is, and just be humble, be grateful, and just hope that, one day when you're gone and when this is all said and done, whoever comes after you, my kids, grandkids, or whoever comes after that, I'm just praying that, it the playing field was leveled for them due to our work. That's really what my goal is and what generational wealth means to me. Like, I want others to enjoy life to the fullest extent that you possibly can, because those that came before you wanted that for you. So, also another interesting thing, random fact, I was I was at a wedding, I think 2 nights ago, and I think I just took a second to myself. I like to like just recharge sometimes throughout the night. I don't know how I ended up finding out that like my last name is like one of the top 700 last names in the entire world. Um, and I was like, that's really interesting in terms of like bloodline. Like that speaks volumes. Like I should be able to survive some stuff. I should be able to go through some stuff. I should be able to leave some stuff for the people behind me. Um, so it's all those things, man. Like I think for me now in this stage of my life, I'm just really thinking about legacy and just really thinking about what are the people that didn't even know me gonna feel and think about me, and like be able to absorb from me when I'm no longer here. So yeah, again, sorry guys. Very
Nah,
deep.
so
That's just how
what?
I
It
feel
is.
about this stuff. This is what drives me. This is how I get to where I'm
Yeah.
going. So like it's just thinking on those deep levels are literally what moves me sometimes. So I'm just able to, get the energy from that. Um, but yeah, that's just how I feel, man. I hope to live in a world someday or others to live in a world someday where it's just like we're sitting at the table. A lot of us are sitting at the table, and it's because we belong there, and it's because this world is for everybody, man. The world is for everybody. That's the reason. For nothing else. I don't want anything that I don't deserve, but what I work for and what I get and what I accomplish, I want that. That's mine. That's for me and my family, and I want to, proudly represent that. So
So
I
you
think
kind
that's
of touched on what you wanted your legacy to be. So when you're no longer here, like what do you want to be remembered as?
um. Y'all definitely have to edit this out. I probably have to grab a drink for a second. I'm on 3%, but um, what do I want to be remembered as? Somebody who loved wholeheartedly, somebody who did the right thing in as many instances as he could, um, somebody who cared for others, somebody who wanted to make a difference in the world based off of those those and the things that I not those the things that I can control in my world, and the people that were able to kind of be a part of it or either learned anything or gained anything, whatever. Like any interaction I've had with people, if you could leave the world saying like three positive sentences about me, I think I did my job. Like I just live and let live, respect each other. Nobody knows the reason why we're even here, but it's a lot of chaos, it's a lot of noise, it's a lot of beautiful moments, a lot of stuff, but choose to make it the most beautiful time that you could make it. That's all you got. make it beautiful, make it connect with people, enjoy it, be the best version of you could be happy with the results. What else could you do? You know? So that's kind of how I just want people to I want people to understand my authenticity and that I just love hard, want good for others. I just want good. I want good aura and good vibes to just come from what anybody feels or thinks about me, and from a genuine place. And that's about it. I'm pretty simple, simple wishes for me.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So I guess this segues perfectly to the last question. Like, what advice would you give your 15-year-old self? Oh, he lost him. He did say his phone was about to die. Guys, this was a beautiful interview. If you're watching, thank you so much for joining us. We come live well, not really live, but we post every Sunday a new video. Wait, he might be coming back. He said he's grabbing a charger. I guess I'll pause.
Legacy.
Welcome back. So the final question is like, what advice would you give your 15-year-old self?
Ooh, we got into all the emotional stuff already, huh? Man. My 15-year-old self. Just keep going. Keep going. Like a lot of the stuff that's directly in front of you, a lot of the day-to-day stuff, don't get too caught up with that. Continue to be true to yourself, continue to work on yourself, continue to love those that love you, continue to lean on the resources that you do have, whether it be family or older, you know, uh, males in your life, whoever it may be. Just trust the process and take more. I would take more risk if I were younger. I think I would. I think I spent a good amount of my time taking shots that I knew I would make for my own confidence. Like just making sure that like I never tried anything that I was gonna fail at. Just having a fear of failure in general. So I think I would have failed more. I think I would have tried more. But yeah, I would just tell myself to like just keep going. Your 15-year-old ideas are actually fire. 15-year-old me was like should have been the owner of Flight Club by now, man. Like for real. Like man, I had some crazy ideas as a kid, and I just think I allowed um I allowed too many influences to kind of get in my ear, but it's not like it didn't turn out bad. It's hard for me to explain that to people. Like it didn't turn out bad. It still turned out good. But now that I'm at this age and stage, so like these are the years where I think I want to try to get into some of the stuff. Some of those ideas I had at 15, I just hope they still work out. But it's a little different now. But yeah, I would just tell myself keep going and there's no real barriers that you can't overcome if you're focused, you're disciplined, and you really want it. There's nothing you're not going to be able to do. Um, and I didn't have that confidence at 15. I now kind of have it, but I'm also parent tired, so that's another set of stuff. But yeah, I didn't have that at 15.
That's true. That is so true. That was a good one. That was a good one. And I guess the final question. So looking at yourself, I don't know, maybe like at your 50-year-old self, I want this video to be something that you could come back to and see like, oh, did I accomplish my goal? Did I not? So at 50 years old, what do you want to have accomplished by then? So that you could look back at this video and be like, I did that.
Oh man,
No pressure.
oh, uh, all right, I'm gonna shoot. I just told you what my 15-year-old should have did, so we're gonna set some bars here. So I think by then I want to be retired, number one, whatever that may be. There's a couple different paths that hopefully I'll be able to get to, but I want to be retired. I don't want to be working. Not that I don't want to be working. I don't want to be working for a company or a hospital anymore. I want to be retired. I want to be, or running my own business, running my own, being a landlord, running a couple different properties, whatever is in my cards. But I want to be self-sufficient. I want to be making my own money. I want to have time for my children, to like really pour some real time into them throughout the day. I want to be still, vacationing and in love with my wife for sure. I want my relationship to still be solid. I want the American dream at 50 that everybody paints, but I want it just in a stress-free way, the most free way possible. I want to travel the world, be there for my kids, be there for my lady, have me time to, play golf or whatever else it may be at that time, and just enjoy life. But I think real estate, I honestly have to say real estate is the means to this becoming a reality, because it's there are very few places that you're gonna look and realize that you have access to like 6 figures plus just because you made a certain decision at a certain time. This is what would make it possible from what I know and what I can see. I don't know everything about every industry, but what I do know is that, again, we stick to that 5-year plan, or we exceed it and we go to another one. If we take a couple more steps, the wishes I have for myself at 50 are not impossible. They're not unattainable at all. So also this is a random one, but also being debt free is pretty important too. I don't think, and I don't know if did I miss this earlier? I don't want to keep us for too long, but just to touch on this for a second. Your buying power when it comes to a house and like credit cards and debt and all that stuff. If you are thinking about getting a house anytime soon and it's a wish of yours and it's something you want, that little $50 minimum, that little $25 minimum, you got whatever you think is just that little whatever, that car payment, you driving an S-Class before you bought a house, whatever you got going on. I do not recommend, if you can stay away from it, just do it till you get a house. It'll bring down your buying power. It'll bring down your credit score. It's just an unnecessary situation. You don't need to be in a relationship with Chase, Bank of America, whoever, for 20 years paying on some debt that you got when you were 18. So that's another thing. Like, be mindful of that. Interest rates are crazy. I believe in good debt and bad debt. We can get into this on a whole nother pod at another point. But what I'm really trying to drive in is like, try to keep your debt down. Check in with yourself about why you're spending the way you're spending. A lot of times it's emotional and it's taught, and it could be just the way your parents did things. It could be a ton of things, but be clear about what your goals are to yourself as a person, and make sure that what you're doing and what you're spending on or what you're committing this money to is in alignment with that. Because if we're talking about working towards any goals over time, there's no worse way of spending your time, energy, and money than wasting it. And it's easier said than done. I get that we're humans, we make natural, like, emotional decisions, but yeah, just stay focused and just try to keep that in mind if possible. But yeah, that's all I got. I just want to be financially free by 50, man. That's about it.
That's a beautiful goal. I think you could definitely accomplish it if you just stay focused on task. Like, it's definitely doable for sure. You touched on so many amazing points. I took notes. So this was awesome. Like, I learned a lot. Thank you. Gavin, do you have any final questions?
No, I don't. I do appreciate you for taking the time. I do appreciate your authenticity and transparency. This interview will stand out because of your approach. So thank you for that.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate
Yes.
it. Thank you for having me, man. I enjoyed this so whether it be my second deal or anything that happens in between. If you guys, you know, ever want to link back up, just say the word.
For
And I
sure.
also have, do you guys take referrals? Because I do have, I might have, I have a couple of people that we'll talk offline, but I have a couple of people that I think might be interesting in the real estate space for y'all too. So just
That'll
let me know.
be awesome. Definitely send those referrals. We'll accept them. So I guess I'll go ahead and close out. Like, thank you guys for watching this interview. We've enjoyed it. I hope you take away stuff like be real with yourself about what your goals are going to be. Make sure you're intentional of how you set those up, how you're budgeting, where you're spending your money, how you're building your community. The communities you're choosing to live in matters. You want to always feel safe in your environment. And just take note that he made an appreciation play with his investment property. So that's always important. Like the places that you're buying in, is it going to appreciate and make you money over time, or is it going to be an income play? So thank you guys for watching, and tune in for the next one.